I think thank you guys. So thank you guys all for hopping on. Um, it's a really great opportunity to kind of share a little bit about backyards. I'm sure many of you are doing either the WausaUltra or the Elm Creek backyard. So welcome. We're really happy to kind of put this together for both audiences to talk a little bit about backyards in general. If there are questions specific to the event, we can take those too, but we might shelve them and take them offline. Because a lot of this is just to talk about like how to prepare for a backyard, what the backyard experience is like, what do you expect happen? Why do people have trauma about whistles blowing and those types of things? So we'll kind of go through. I mean, I'll just introduce myself quick. I'll introduce my team from my side and then let Ellen introduce her team. And then we'll introduce the panelists that we have and we'll run through a series of questions that we kind of brought. And then if people have questions, we'll leave about 15 minutes at the end. If you guys have anything kind of on your mind that you want to ask of the group that's out there, or if anybody else has any other insights that they want to share from their experiences. I know we have a number of veterans of backyards on this call beyond the people that are on our official panel. So we'll go from there. So I'll start. I'm Nick Oswald from the race director for the Elm Creek backyard. So we're in our second year. So we're really excited to have a field of 125 coming this year. And yeah, I'll turn it to Jeanette quick to say hello.
Hi, Jeanette Dressen, based in Minneapolis, support Nick in the Elm Creek backyard last year and happy to be back on the team this year.
We've got Bryn and Eric as well.
Hi there, I'm Bryn.
And I'm Eric.
We joined last year as well, and we're the volunteer coordinators. Here to meet your needs.
And we've got Ellen, and I'm not sure, Ellen, who's all on your team from the call, but if any of the WausaUltra folks that are on want to say hello, feel free.
Yes, Ellen she's running a little bit behind, but yes, my name is Jake. I am one of the 6 of us, and we have Scott is on here as well as Rob Hohen. And is Chad on here?
I am.
Okay, and we also have Jen.
And
So,
well, thank you guys for joining.
Thanks for having us.
The Elm Creek side, I'll just quickly kind of get you through our panel. I'll go through it kind of who are you, where are you from, and what was your favorite aspect of the backyard? So we've got Riley, who's first up on my screen.
So I'm Riley Bergstall. I live in Kirkhoven, Minnesota. My favorite part about the backyard experience is the fact that it's a puzzle, and I'll get into that later with some of the other questions we get to go over. So
Riley is our defending champion. He made it 17 loops, and the freezing cold rain that we had from before the race started all the way through. So thanks for being on, Riley. We've got Scott O'Leary, who was the assist last year. So Scott, you want to say hello? I think you're muted right now, Scott.
Oh, sorry. Hi, Scott O'Leary. I live in Maple Grove. My favorite part about backyard is basically the unknown. I just like that you go into that race and it's basically the great unknown within yourself and how far you're going to go. It's just, I love that part of it. So.
Well, thanks, Scott. And we have Katka on the call for us.
Hi, I'm Katka. I live in Brooklyn Park, Minnesota, so very close to Elm Creek. What I like about backyard is that it doesn't feel as much as a race because it's slower and there are breaks and there is lots of time to talk to people, which I really like. And it feels very friendly and comfy.
Thanks, Katka. And then we have Madeline. Sorry. You're on mute, Madeline.
Yeah. Either Maddie or Madeline works fine. So I am Madeline. I'm from originally from Kansas, but I lived in Minnesota for a while. Right now I live in Duluth. And my favorite aspect of the backyard is the community. Like you really get to know people running the same loop over and over with them. And it's a lot of fun.
Thanks, Madeline. Then we have Leroy from the WausaUltra crowd.
Yeah, my name is Leroy Jonas. I'm over in Wausa here with, as you said, with the WausaUltra crowd. And this will be my 3rd year doing the backyard. And I think I love the fact that you can push yourself way farther than you ever thought you could. And it's a level playing field by all standards. It's a level playing field. So you don't have to be the fastest. You just got to go the farthest. So love it.
Awesome. And then Melissa from the WausaUltra card.
Hey guys, yeah, Melissa here. I am in Gleason, Wisconsin, so right at the Northwoods area. And my favorite part about the backyard is also the community aspect. And I love going into it not knowing what distance I'm going to be finishing with or ending with. So I like the unknown factor and the challenge of pushing yourself to your limits.
And then Travis.
Yep, Travis White in the Wausa area as well. I would have to agree with Madeline and what many of the others have said. It's really the people, the way that the race is set up. You get to continuously see not just crew, but other race supporters. And then the environment allows for, feels like every lap somebody's PRing, right? They're hitting a new furthest distance ever. And it just kind of, there's always a good story going on and it kind of keeps you going.
And then we have Jessica.
Hello. Jess from Green Bay, Wisconsin. I agree with the the part about the camaraderie and getting to know everybody's stories. I think it was both Scott and Melissa mentioned liking that unknown factor. I would say that's what I struggle with the backyard concept is being a goal-oriented person. I kind of need that more defined start and finish, but definitely the people factor throws a whole different spin on what you get out of the race. It's more about you're just feeding off of everybody else that you're running with. So I think that's the best part. That's what I got.
So what we're going to do, we've got about 10 questions, and we're going to kind of cycle through a couple people from the panel. But if anybody else wants to add anything, feel free to. Also, if anybody on the call wants to ask a question, you can drop it in the chat. I think we'll all keep an eye on that and chime in. But I'll just kind of go through and we'll kind of usher our way through as we go and try to leave some time at the end for questions. So the first question I've got for Riley, Madeline, and Travis is just what's different about a backyard compared to other types of events for you guys? Ron, you want to start?
Yeah. So as I said in the beginning, the event is really like a puzzle to me. So when I got into this, I just realized there are so many more pieces to this than coming off of racing the 5K and racing marathon, and then now going into the backyard. It's really been training is just, it's got to be consistent no matter the conditions, just run. So just like you said last year, I mean, we had rain like the whole time. So no matter what the weather's doing outside, I get out and get in it. The elevation, it was a sneaky enemy for me. Being out in Midwest Minnesota, it's completely flat. So elevation has caught up to me in the past. So I've really focused on hip, knee, and ankle strength. Lots of single-legged squats, lunges, sled pulls. Even running backwards is something I've started to implement just to build ankle strength. I have rolled ankles in the past, and I don't want to deal with that. Gut training's been a big one. So I'll sometimes eat meals and then go for a run and see how it sits. And then also nap training, even at school on prep time, I'll see if I can fall asleep in 10 minutes, set my stopwatch and see if that works. Otherwise, heart rate training too, just to actively monitor my efforts as I'm out on the trail. And so really there's just so much more to it than just trying to redline for 3 hours in a marathon or something like that. So
Yeah, I can go next. I'd reflect. I like that analogy of a puzzle. I think that compared to, I've done a couple hundreds, and since then I've done some longer 200 plus races, and this event allows you to have kind of the perfect setup. Like you get to go back to your crew every hour. You get to nail nutrition. You get to nail hydration. Nail salt intake. which is all fantastic. And I think a lot of those things are reasons that people do have PRs at these events, but you also cannot have a bad hour. So unlike any of those other races, where you can have an issue, and if you need to nap for an hour or two, or, take 30 minutes off, you can still finish. In this race, there is no bad hours. So even though everything is set up to be very consistent, you still got to be on your game.
I'll echo what others have said. It's a very different type of event, because at no point are you really trying to run like super fast or like pass people, which like I grew up running, cross country track, and like that's like my mindset usually. So it's very much about, I feel like it's like more of like a solo experience. Like, okay, how do I make sure I'm ready for the next hour, the next lap? What do I need to do to take care of myself? What pace do I need to go at? What do I need to do when I get back to the break? And how long do I need for that? So it's very different than any other type of event, which is just kind of cool. I've typically used, so I haven't really gone like all out for a backyard. So I've used it to train for 100-mile races to get practice with my, light setup running at night and with my nutrition and that sort of thing. So I can't speak to, so I usually actually do know how far I plan to go, which is kind of my mindset again this year, but, or at least a ballpark estimate, but but that's a cool thing too. It's a really great, training ground for that if you're training for like 100 or 200 or something like that.
Madeline, that's a great transition. Our second question is all about goal setting. So like for each of you, like how do you guys think about goal setting when there's no finish? I know, Madeline, you touched on you specific goals, so you're trying to get to so many laps and that kind of defines your day. But for Jessica, Leroy, and Scott, I don't know, Jessica, do you want to start and talk a little bit about goal setting for the race? And how do you think about it? Are you trying to go as far as you can go, or are you doing something similar to Madeline where you're saying, I'm trying to 50K?
Yeah, I was all like exactly like Madeline. When I ran it as a training run for my 100, I was about 6 weeks out, I think. So it definitely, with that goal thing in mind, you have to be all in. Like you have to, it's so easy to quit in a backyard. It's so easy. You're coming around every hour and you have to kind of just have it in your mind. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep going. But that's hard to do when that's not your goal race of the year, when you're using it, like we were as a tune-up for that set mileage run or whatever. So I would say for people going into it, have your reason for wanting to do it, and just you gotta be all in for sure.
Leroy, what are your thoughts about goals and how have you approached the backyard?
Yeah. So this will be my third year doing it this year. And, I came into this not having ran. I mean, Rob, who's on the call, helped me run my first half marathon back in 2020. And so before that, I'd never run more than like a 5K. And so coming into the 2021 backyard, my longest training run ever was a 16-mile run. I'd done that twice. And so you kind of come into this completely different. And so there's been a lot of good stuff shared, I think, about using this as a training run. But I think that the big approach is kind of understanding why you want to run this race, right? Is this your hallmark race? Is it not your hallmark race? The first year it was like, okay, I can go try this and see how it goes. And that's a very different approach, obviously. And then last year when I went, I had a very, very specific goal. But I think the reality is it's like knowing why you're getting into this is a big deal, because you don't want to run somebody else's race. And I think that's one of the big things, and I'll talk about this later when we talk about pacing, but just this reality of getting caught up running somebody else's race, somebody else's pace. and you don't want to do that. And so when you know why you're doing it and what your goal might be for this, I feel like you can come away with a win. And I think Travis said this, you're seeing people PR every single lap, and it just offers such a vibrance to the whole event. So if you know why you're doing it and what your goal is, you can come away with a win if that's 20 miles or if that's 162 miles, like, you know, the people over here did the first year. And so I think the goal setting aspect is just, it's really a personal thing. And then just when you get there, being willing to push farther and see how much more you got in the tank. Because I think that's what's so cool about this race. There's no finish line. So if there's somebody else lining up every time to push you, as you know, Travis and Andrea did the first year here, it's amazing to see what people can do. And I think it inspires other people too. So just know why you're doing it and what your goal is. And I think a lot of wins can be achieved in that weekend.
Scott, what are your thoughts?
Yeah. So I agree. I think it's a kind of a very personal event on a lot of levels, from a lot of things was said, from community to distance, to finding out who you are out there, tune-up run or an A race. There's so many reasons to run it, but from my point of view, just particularly me, I've run twice. The first time I had a goal, and it was a really bad idea for me. Having a goal was not something that worked out for me. I had a number, and the number became something bigger than what I was doing on the day. Every lap became about a number versus me just being it. So when I ran it last year, I had no goal. I showed up, and the goal was to get to the next lap. And it was a completely different experience. I went further, and I was much more in a place where the event was happening for me. I wasn't getting swept up by the event. It was just a very different experience. Now, I'm not saying someone shouldn't go in with a goal, but for me, I just keep going back to the unknown. I think not knowing what's going to happen is part of the joy of this event, to let it happen to you, because there's so many things that can happen. If I go in, I say, here's my number, like was said earlier, one thing can throw you off and you're done before you even thought you're out of this race. So I think just going in with that mindset is super helpful to being in the moment, being in the race, and really like letting the race happen underneath me instead of me trying to force things to happen that only cause me issues. And I just feel like it led me to go further. And I feel like it feels like going into this race this year, I don't really have a goal. Again, this race, it's like, I'm just going to show up and keep lining up until it doesn't happen anymore, but I don't have a number in my head.
Thanks, Scott. On the next one, so we talked a little bit about, I think Riley touched on this a bit, run training. So if you think about this being a little bit different in terms of pacing, in terms of how we train and how we think about the event, in terms of goal setting, like how does training differ? So I don't know, Melissa, if you want to start, talk a little bit about, does training differ? Is this, maybe it's a stepping stone race similar to what Madeline and Jess said for you, so the training might not differ a lot, but what types of things do you think about when getting ready for this one?
Yeah, so I have changed up my training for this coming Backyard Ultra. So in the past, I had been following smaller training plans for 50K and hoping that I could get further than a 50K without training further than a 50K. So this year I'm following more of that 100-miler training plan so that my body is conditioned and prepped for it. And I know somebody else touched base on strength training, but I'm incorporating more strength training. So like the sled pushing and pulling, and more like resistance bands, or strengthening my calves and ankles and feet, because they are the base of my body. So if they're not strong, how are they going to carry my body throughout? So I'm just focusing on those aspects for training for this time around, and primarily because the hills add up over time. So my calves and quads got trashed the last 2 years, and I just want to be more prepared and conditioned for that.
Good. How about Katya?
Me,
Yes.
yeah. So I think what I had to do last year was to slow down, which was hard because I didn't run trails as much as I wanted to, and I trained a lot on the road and raced the roads much. And so I actually went to Elm Creek and tried to follow the map you posted last year, and I tried to really force myself to slow down to like to 11 or almost towards 12 minutes a mile, which seems like it's easy task, but it's really hard to slow down when you are running around between 9 to 10 minutes a mile. So I think that's what I'm trying to do this year, and I'm better in that now. And as I said, I went to Elm Creek because I live very close, so that was easy on my side. And then this year I'm trying to do more. What later in the year after the Backyard Ultra worked was the back-to-back training more than just focusing on super long runs, because it's also very time consuming, and it doesn't always fit my schedule with full-time work job and kids and stuff. So I rather split the load during the weekend. So that's what I'm trying to do, and it actually seems to be working. And also what I'm doing this year is multiple workouts a day or runs a day, and even shorter, but still getting the load, and hoping that's gonna work. And I'm trying to also get more rainy runs in because it was really lots of rain last year and I wasn't ready for that.
It'll be totally dry this year, sure. Yeah.
It'll be dry, just a lot of snow probably. So, Riley, do you have anything to add on the training side? I know you touched on a little bit on the onset, but other thoughts about training?
Yeah, for me, I just kind of was training for the. Oh, sorry. Did you?
Okay. No, you're fine.
Oh, okay, yeah, I was training for the 100-mile event, and this I just kind of fit this in as a super long run.
Okay.
How I approached it.
Anything else on your side?
Nothing unique to that. The one part is basically the gut training, and I'll get into that and when we talk more about nutrition, but really it is that hip, knees, and ankle strength. Really looking at, so one of the things that I implemented when the roads were actually nice. I mean, right now, for the last month, they've been absolutely awful, but running backwards, it sounds crazy, but it really changed. About a week or two before Elm Creek last year, I wrecked my ankle on a trail run, and I had to brace it for some of the race last year. And then I spent a lot of the time between Elm Creek and the Ode to Laz, Michigan, really focusing on strengthening my ankles and my knees, and so that wouldn't happen again. So.
Thanks, Riley. Okay, next question gets into, so transition time ends up being kind of a critical thing in this kind of event. It's every race starts again at the top of the hour. So I don't know, when we think about transitions, so Travis, do you have any thoughts about, like, how did you approach transitions? What types of things did you do? What did you think about maybe as you came in from a loop? Were there things that you did to make sure you could effectively make that turn and start that next loop on time?
Yeah, for transitions, my main goal was really just to be calm. I went in with a plan. I had a very specific nutrition plan, hydration plan, and tried to stick to it. But like any big ultra events, that usually goes out the window at some point. But just knowing that that's going to happen and letting my crew deal with it. And I'd come in, I'd sit down, I'd tell the crew what I needed. I'd get up with a minute to go, get back in the corral, and just try to stay completely calm, stress-free, and not let that mental aspect get to me.
Awesome. Jess, how did you approach transitions when you were doing this?
Transitions for me are difficult because like I'm used to an ultra where I keep plugging through. I don't like to stop even like at aid stations. I usually, my crew is my husband and he knows exactly what I need and hands it to me as I keep, I may slow down to a walk or just grab it, keep running, and that works better for me. So the transitions actually got easier as the day went on, because in the first several loops, I actually had time during the transition to sit down, and I think I popped open a can of Coke and ate some food, and just, I'm not used to stopping like that, and stopping's not a good thing for me. So in hindsight, the earlier loops, I probably should have just really milked it a bit more and gone slower, so that just for me personally, this may not work for anybody else, but to minimize the amount of transition. Like in an ideal world, I would have no transition and just kind of keep slowly coasting through and just keep going. So I guess it would depend on that person, and because some people do like aid stations, they like to stop and take a little bit of rest, and that works for them. But for me, and I'm sure that there's not the only person that's like this, the stopping or resting is not as good of a thing. So you just got to know, I guess, your own style as far as that goes. So have a plan for the transitions in that regard.
Did any of you try to sleep? I know as these things go on and you get into potentially a second night or into that like 30-hour range. So I think Travis
I've-
did the 150.
Our
mile
second
range.
night, I tried to sleep and maybe got in, a couple of minutes a lap for the last few laps.
Okay, moving on. So from a pacing standpoint, so from Leroy, talk a little bit about how you think about pacing. You touched on this early.
Yeah, I think it's a really great question. So I wrote down, as I was kind of thinking about this, two different angles to approach this. And I think that's based off of whether or not you can get feet on that course before you actually have to run the race. Because for us, this race, for me specifically living here in Wausa, this race is on the other side of town. And so I ran a whole lot of training miles on that course. And the benefit of that was I knew exactly where I needed to be at specific times. And so if you can get your feet and your eyes on the course, for me, I knew, okay, at the top of this hill, I need to be about this time. At this point, I need to be at this time. When I get to this trail, I need to be at this time. When I get down here, I need to be at this time to be able to hit my paces. And so, in our format, you've got 1 hour to complete the loop. I was shooting for 52 minutes. So I think Jess or Madeline, somebody just said that you don't want any gaps. I liked the gap, and I was looking for about 8 minutes. And so when I came around, I wanted to be 52 minutes back in the tent, and sitting down for a couple minutes. But the pacing strategy was I knew how long I wanted to be, how much rest I wanted to have, and then I knew where I needed to be on the course. So I think if you can see the course and you get feet on the course, that's probably the best thing in my opinion. And then second would be, obviously, if you can't get on there, you're going to have to start calculating that the first couple loops and communicating with your crew when you get in, so that you can start formulating what you need to do and what amount of time works. And so I think those are the two big things. And then earlier I had made the comment that probably the biggest thing in this race, everybody said there's this camaraderie aspect, but I think it was probably Travis who told me multiple times, and he's been a great influence for me after so many people, saying you can't hang around and talk to people who are running too fast or too slow for you. And this isn't a friend contest, right? Like, you want to build good relationships and stuff, but how often do you get burned if you run too fast or too slow? And so I think one of my bigger takeaways is on pacing. Know your pace, run your race, and you can talk afterwards. But that's probably been some of the best advice I've received.
Do you guys run the same course 24 hours like the entire time, or do you have a different course for nighttime, or do you rotate the course at all?
Same course, 4.167 mile loop every hour on the hour till somebody quits.
Okay.
So you know exactly what tree you need to be at what minute to be able to know if you're on pace or not.
We have the same course. We rotate it every 6 hours. So just to give a different direction, different point of view, which is an exciting mix in the middle of the night. Scott, how do you think about pacing? Like, how did you approach it when you were out there?
Sure. So I had, along with sort of what I talked to you about having done 2 races, I had 2 totally different experiences. So the first race, I did what these guys are talking about a little bit in terms of like, there were people there I knew, we were chit-chatting, I was running with them, it became social. I was running paces I didn't want to run. I was sometimes running slower than I wanted, faster than I wanted to. I didn't really understand. I didn't come in at certain times. I was all over the map and like on times and stuff like that. It didn't go the way I wanted it to go. So when I did the backyard last year, I kind of knew where I wanted to be, and it's sheer luck. I was hitting laps like religiously at a certain time, and I didn't want to be antisocial and stuff like that, but I just wasn't really there to talk or hang out with anybody. I kind of knew what I wanted to do, and that helped a lot. It was a very different race for me in terms of like me being in the zone, me hitting exactly the times I wanted to. I felt bad at sometimes. There's people on the course I love dearly, but it was just, I had already been in an experience where I had done that and didn't work out well. Now, when I got down to, it was like Riley, myself, and the other guy, and then we started talking and started running together. I started to lose I was like, what am I doing? But it was the 3 of us, and it was like a weird thing to be just 3 guys or 3 runners, and you feel like you can't almost separate yourself from that at that point. And that's kind of where I kind of lost a bit of my on the nose thing. So it's all lessons learned. You never know when something's going to hit you, when something's going to hit. But for me personally, finding a zone of a time, whatever it is, I don't even have a particular time. It's just how I feel. And it happened to be that race. I just had a certain time I was coming in every time that felt right for me. And I was nailing it. And I hope that happens again, because I feel like it was pure luck.
So Katka, do you have any thoughts on pacing?
Yeah, I just agree with whatever Scott and Leroy said, but I was aiming to run around 12-minute a mile to have around 10 minutes to spare, and it was my first backyard, and it worked out well. I kind of just filled my water there, stick around the fire pits to stay warm and get going again. There's no point to try to raise anybody. So as Scott said, just listen to your body. What is your pace? You know your pace. So that's important. And don't burn yourself on the hills. Just walk the hills. Everybody always walks the hills. There's no reason to like just leave your ego behind. Like just, enjoy, run. I don't know. I get sometimes drawn into like kind of the racing mood that like I see somebody, oh, look at them hopping the hill, so I might try that too. But that's not that's not the way you want to go on these. It's just really better to stick to your pace, even if you want to talk to someone, if you like someone the previous loop, but they are keeping their pace, you have different one. There's no point to try to match them.
Thank you. Shifting to nutrition, Madeline, how did you think about nutrition? And specifically, there's a question about, were you calculating like specific macro breakdowns per loop that you're trying to hit? Or how did you generally think about that?
Yeah, I don't remember putting like a ton of thought into nutrition. I think I was aiming for around 200 calories per loop, because kind of to practice getting that 200 calories an hour that I'd want to 250 that I want to get during a 100-mile. And yeah, nutrition worked out great for me at the backyard actually. And so that was encouraging. It actually didn't work out so well during the actual 100-mile I ran, even despite using similar things. But yeah, nutrition, it's a great place to practice nutrition, I think. And I think I can identify the reasons that when I was running through all day and night, things, didn't work out as well. Yeah, I don't know that I would change anything from what I did at backyard this year. It worked out pretty well. for me. I was just eating a mixture of things. Sometimes I'd have like an awesome sauce gel, and sometimes I'd have some like Roctane electrolyte drink. And I think I had a couple like granola bar stuff. So just kind of trying to have a mix of real food and gels like I would use for the 100 I was training for.
That's great. Thank you. Riley, what are your thoughts on nutrition? How did you approach it?
I am approaching it completely different this time. So as I said earlier, Elm Creek was my first one that I did ever, and then I went down out to Michigan, ran the Ode to Laz, and out there I went mainly liquid based with a brand called Tailwind, and then just kind of mixed in some foods here and there, and whatever I was kind of feeling, because I haven't gotten to a place yet to figure out because after 50 miles, everything seems to change. I'm usually a really big sweets guy, but then all of a sudden I realized that I absolutely love ramen. Somebody brought that to me and I'm like, I haven't eaten that in 20 years. So it's really, I'm going to try to hit that 400 calories a loop with the real food. I'm trying to put together like kind of pre-set meal packs. When I come in, I can tell my crew, this is what I'm looking for, and maintain the 500 milliliter bottle a lap still with the Tailwind. And the nutrition played a big role into pulling out of Ode to Laz, and I'll get to that later. But yeah, I'm still trying to learn. I mean, things get weird after 50 miles for me, and trying to figure out what that's going to be to keep extending the run. So,
Melissa, do you have any thoughts on nutrition that you can share?
Yeah, I would say first and foremost, nutrition is not one size fits all. 3 years ago, I tried to mimic Maggie Gooderell's nutrition plan for backyard, and that did not last very long for me. So I've learned to listen to my body and follow what my body needs versus somebody else, and practice. That is a huge thing too, is practice during your training. So actually last Sunday I found a new nutritional endurance gummy that did not sit well with me. So I was happy that I practiced using it instead of trying it on race day. So practice and find your own nutrition plan that works for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and one thing I would add about nutrition is that like when I get sleep deprived, that seems to like, or when I get too tired, that seems to like really wreck anything in terms of nutrition. So yeah, it's tricky to get sleep in a backyard, but if you're planning to really go for the long haul, I mean, of course, this is a night run too. So yeah, there can be some challenges.
So practice nutrition, practice the night running, give you a little taste of everything. So, but I think to your point, it's a great place to test some things and try some things.
Yeah.
Shifting to the talk of crew. So, I mean, we have one aid station at a backyard. It's a big base camp with lots of activity, and every 4 miles you get to see a crew. So, Travis, how did you approach having a crew, or did you have a crew for one, and like how did that work for you?
Yeah, I had an awesome crew. Again, kind of leaning back on what I talked about earlier, their job was just to keep the stress off of me. So, you know, kind of have everything ready that I might need as far as clothing, etc. But again, really it was nutrition and hydration. Just they kept track, made sure I did have a very specific around 300 calories a lap, and I wanted a certain amount of sodium and a certain amount of liquids. I didn't care where it came from. I'm pretty sure there's a handful of beers in there even. But as long as it's coming in, and again, just keep me so I'm not stressing about it. Hey, I want a slice of pizza and a half of an IPA on the next lap. Just have it ready for me, you know, and they were instrumental in that. And then towards the end of the race, certainly there was, you know, massaging, stretching, keeping the mental aspect in there, providing laughs as the laps got longer and longer, and just general support.
Jess, do you have any thoughts about crew? Did you use crew? How did it work for you?
Yeah. So crewing, always my husband is my crew. I'm kind of like the karate kid, and he's my Mr. Miyagi of the operation. So, but he's used to being like a mobile unit crewing for me. He's used to, having to plan everything out logistically, like getting from point A to point B. And so this was staying in one place. And so in hindsight, I think that it probably would have been more fun for both of us, maybe if we had had like an actual, like several people in the crew kind of thing. Cause he did a lot of, just waiting around where normally he's, the minute he sees me, he's packing up to get ready to head out to that next place where he's going to see me. So the biggest piece of advice would just be your crew just has to know you. And like, my husband's been crewing ultras for me for 12 years and kind of just knows what I need more than I even know. I don't even have to say anything. He just kind of hands it to me and I take it. So I would say make it fun, like have several people if you can, and they can hang out at that tent and wait for you. And yeah, I would approach the crew aspect of it a lot differently next time, I think. So
Okay.
yes.
Scott, what are your thoughts on crew?
Yeah, I have one. I have basically one crew chief at every race. That's my wife. I'm in a similar situation. She's crewed every race I've ever done, whether it's ultras or Spartan races. So I think the thing that makes it really, that race is what was just said, was the people that are crewing you are having a good time. Because when I got to the tent, well, first off, they wouldn't let me in. They were in the tent having fun, and it was too small for me to get in. So I had to sit out and stay wet the whole time, which is actually a benefit, which I would not change. I'm glad I didn't get in the tent because I never got comfortable the whole time. But they had me laughing until Nick started blowing those freaking whistles. And I think you need some mental break in this race. And I think with the crew, if they come in and everything's like sort of like panicky and tense and like everything's like you're just you're like the car pulling in the pit and everything's like robotic. I think this race can mentally wear you down. I went in there and it was just like fun. Like they were happy to see me. I was happy to see them. And then as far as that like I'm the same situation. She knows what I want before I know what I want, or knows what I need before I know what I need, really. She'll ask me like 3 questions, and then if I don't answer them correctly, she just gives me something and I'll eat it or drink it or whatever. So, but the point that I think this race is like, I think it would be a really different experience if I showed up by myself and was crewing myself and dealing with myself and running that race. I think having people there who are fun and really want to be there and want to be out there all night and get soaked or not get soaked or just spend 2 days waiting for you to run loops and they think it's funny and fun helps you mentally. That I would highly suggest that if I think you'll go further personally, and it'll be a better experience for you.
Awesome. Thank you, Scott.
Yeah, of course.
On the topic of gear, so Leroy, was there anything that you didn't have that you really wish you did? Was there anything that you brought that you thought was a complete lifesaver? That you'd say everybody needs to have this? Is it an IPA in your cruise bag to make sure you have it?
Probably not an IPA for me, but I'm glad it worked for Travis. That's good. So I kind of wrote 2 different things. For on the course, I would say a watch. And I know that might not be everybody's jam, but let me tell you something. A watch, and a watch that can go long enough for the race. So the first year I did the race, actually both years I did the race, I had a watch that was inadequate. So the first year I did 30 some miles, which was way outside what I thought I was going to do. So I didn't know what to expect. My watch was fine. But the second year I ended up doing 62 miles and my watch died around 11 o'clock, or was it going to die? And we had to disconnect it, hook it up to a battery pack and shove it in my pouch so I could run with it. And on those 2 loops when I had it charging, I almost missed the cutoff. And so if not for a fellow racer who had, he had dropped, and he came out and found me on the course and was like, dude, you got 9 minutes to book your rear end down this hill and get a mile in, I would have been done at like 50 miles, 50 some miles. So that watch is absolutely crucial if you're going to be in a backyard. I know that some people don't like technology and watches and stuff. I'm just going to tell you, in a backyard, I don't know how you survive without it. And then on the flip side, so that would be what I would say on the course. And then in the base camp side, I would say a crew. If there's one thing that I've realized, which is not a piece of gear, but it is absolutely essential to success. The first year, my sister crewed me, who had never crewed anything before. I had friends stop by. To Scott's point, it was a lot of fun. But man, we didn't know what we were doing. We got great race directors who are stopping by and giving pointers, and there's such a great community of people sharing tips and stuff. We didn't have a clue what we were doing. But then last year, I mean, Travis came and crewed for me. And just so many people. If not for those people, I never would have made it. Never in a billion years I would have made it as far as I did. And so I would say a crew, and then they have a watch too, because they should be the ones who are getting you out of the tent and get you into the corral. You shouldn't be worried about how much time you've got. They should be the one to tell you time to stand up, time to get in the corral. To Travis's point, none of that should be on your mind at all. And so a watch and crew. That's what I would tell you.
Awesome. Katya, what are your thoughts?
I agree with watch. I can't even imagine running a loop without a watch. But what else I would add? Probably enough of boxes of Kleenex, because usually end of April my allergies hit. So have some allergy medicine with, because I had no idea I was gonna hit at that time. And then enough of Vaseline for feet because it was raining a lot. So and the crew, it was my first overnight race, so I was glad I actually convinced a few people to come. I was almost decided, like it was just decided like last minute. So now when Leroy talked about it, that probably would be completely different experience if I didn't have them there. And what else? And some water repelling layer probably, because like waterproof jacket or something, at least maybe couple. I always bring too much stuff. I know that. I always bring spare shoes that I never switch. And there was no point to switch it last year because it really poured. There was maybe like our window we had when it wasn't raining. So I probably switched to layers once, but yeah, that's probably it. And then we already talked about the nutrition, and I had my favorite gels and gummies, the Scratch brand that I really like now, but I still fell for the quesadillas there. The food was really great there. The volunteers did a really good job, and it worked for me too. So I kind of went with the flow.
Awesome. Melissa, do you have any thoughts about your topic?
Yeah, so I would 100% agree with the watch, and make sure you pick something out that has that longer battery life. In addition to that, for me, I love having my hydration pack on me just in case I have any, I am a tripping hazard to begin with, so I carry Band-Aids with me. And just having that extra hydration flask on hand. Last year I ran into the last few laps. I had seconds left to get back into the corral with just getting back. So I didn't have very much time to refill with water or anything like that. So I was prepared to like jump right back in right away. And for me, when I do have time in between laps and pace myself accordingly, I also bring like a foam roller or some kind of muscle massager just to work that out. And compression calf sleeves seem to help me after the hill climbs, after so many laps. Last but not least, I enjoy having some kind of music at some point. Throw in a good polka, so something upbeat, or just lift your spirits. So I like having music on occasion.
Thank you.
Nick, hey Nick, one other thing real quick, I would say was a game changer is Gore-Tex shoes. if you're going to have multiple pairs of shoes, is it Katka? I apologize if I pronounced it incorrectly. But you know what? I remember the first year that I went out, I had one pair of shoes, and it was like Travis and I spent a lot of time on the course together, and we're walking up a hill, and he's like, "Man, you changed shoes yet?" I'm like, "I don't have any other shoes." And he's like, "I feel so weird. I got like 10 pairs in there, and but it turns out you need those." And last year I ran the first 30 some miles in a pair of Gore-Tex Speed Goats, and I didn't change them, but it was so wet at the beginning of that race, and I eventually did need to change. But if I would have had Gore-Tex Speed Goats on, it would have been 4 miles in and my feet would have been soaked because of just the wet grass. It wasn't even raining. The grass was wet. And so a Gore-Tex option in your shoes. And I think she said too, Gore-Tex or rainproof gear, because we got into a literal monsoon at about 11 o'clock on last year. And if you wouldn't have had that, it would have been a nightmare. So
I go back and forth on Gore-Tex, but if you ever want to make your shoes Gore-Tex that aren't Gore-Tex, I've learned that you can just spray them with PAM, and apparently it's a good way to convert your shoes to Gore-Tex shoes. Some dude taught me that at a race out west. He was trying to spray everything before the race with his PAM. He's like, it turns them into Gore-Tex.
Can you un-Gore-Tex your shoes with the PAM afterwards, or is that a permanent solution?
I'm like, it's a permanent sealing of all the any kind of drainage in your shoe. So the one
so
Nick,
once it converts, you're never converting again.
No.
Nick, these are the tips that everyone dialed in for tonight. These ones right here. Pamming shoes.
So we'll go quick, and then if people want to stick around to ask questions, but just last for like Riley, this might be easy because Madeline, you had a set goal, so you decided your race would end at a certain time, and that worked out well for you. Travis, I don't know how you tapped out of a race, or did you just win them all? Or did Andrew? I don't know. Did Andrew?
So I did tap out. For me, I was very fortunate. I had an awesome race. Had a lot of people around that really kept me going, and it really allowed for, and maybe some of the people on this call that were in a better state of mind than me could remind me that I'm remembering. But I feel like the first 28 to 30 hours were actually pretty solid. Like, in great spirits, singing, eating, no issues. And it got real hot out the second day. And somewhere in there, I had a couple bad hours where I was sick of the heat, overheating. But then that kind of went away for a while as well. But ultimately, for me, it came down to probably the last 6 hours. And there was 2 of us for 11 hours. So a lot of people had left. And you're just getting into that corral over and over with the same person. And, with about probably 5 or 6 hours to go, I just was sick of it. I didn't want to do another lap mentally. Just wasn't having fun anymore. Started feeling for my crew still being out there. And I went those 5 or 6 laps. And then I remember I came in on after lap 38, and I admitted to my crew that, look, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be out here anymore. But I was never going to die in the chair. So I got up and I went out, but I didn't make it in on that lap. Even though I physically was absolutely capable of it, I actually sat down during that lap for a few minutes, and thank God I came in a couple minutes after the time, but still almost made it back. And but just mentally given up, had enough. Hard to do, but.
Riley, what was your experience? I know I owed the Laz. I heard stories about it from Laz, or from Tad, who runs that race.
Yeah, that was something. It was one of the hardest things I've ever gone through. And out there, we had high heat, and again, the elevation had gotten up to me. It was sneaky. But at about a mile 100, touching back on some of the goal setting, I like to see it as checkpoints. And the 100-mile checkpoint was there for me. And so to get there, that was good, but that wasn't where I wanted to end. But at that point, I knew that my stomach had locked up and my gut locked up, and I didn't know what to do about it. I didn't have the experience, but at then I sort of reflect on what had been happening, and I was like, I wasn't taking in enough during the high heat and all the elevation. So I knew it was only a matter of time and I'd have to pull out. But the problem was the crew that was there, and it's not a bad problem. It was like a NASCAR pit crew. You know, you come in and they just shower you with support, and you're like, well, what the heck? I might as well get back up and go again. But the mantra was just get in the trees. As soon as I'd get in the trees, I could turn it on and I would keep going. The pack ahead of me would see me lumber back through the trails, and they're like, what, this guy's still going. But I knew that, you know, if I didn't pull myself out, that they'd probably find me at the base of those railroad ties. And so it just, and then it ended up, I did pull out and ended up in the ER on the way home with rhabdo, because my body was at that point of just completely shutting down and pretty much eating itself. So that's why the nutrition is such a big thing for me this time around, is that was painful. And again, I don't want to have to go through that again. So.
Well, thanks, Riley. Anybody else have any other questions out there? So I can stick around for a little bit if you have questions specific about the events. Right? There's other people that are out there that want to ask questions while we're waiting. I mean, thank you to the folks on the panel that hopped on and shared their stories and gave a little perspective about their experiences. But yeah, open up. If you have questions, hop on, ask away. I'll try to watch. If you've got a question in the chat, I can ask it of the group. Or if you have a question, why do this? It's fun, right? It's a good challenge.
I'll try and answer it. I think it's just an interesting format that allows you to find out stuff about yourself you just can't find out in a lot of other formats. I mean, I don't know how to say it any simpler. Like, you know, if you're running a set distance with you know, within certain time limits and stuff, there's always room for error. There's room to recover and stuff. And there's just no forgiving in this race. And even when Travis is talking about, like, he went 6 more laps after he didn't want to do this anymore, he still went 6 more laps. It's like, I think that's where you find yourself. You find out who you are and what you're about in a very different way. I love that part about the race, because you don't know what's gonna happen. You don't know what the weather's gonna be. You don't know if what you eat's gonna sit right with you. You just, there's so, again, back to the unknowns. And I think it's just a cool experience that you can't plot out. Like, I think that's why, you know, we keep trying to go further and further in races, is because it's like, well, I don't know what that's going to be like. It's unknown. This is just like a concentrated version of that. Like, if, you know, even when you go a 200 miler, you have points where if you're in really bad shape, you can sit down for 3 hours and recover. You don't have, but at the best 5 minutes if you're in this race, really, or unless you're running too hard all the time and you can do it. But so I think it's just a very cool, like, it's just an experience and experimental. And I that's what I love about it. You don't know what you're going to get. That's why you do it. It's like, it's just the unknown. I thank God it was created. I just think it's amazing.
I'll add to that. I think it's pain and suffering. I mean, I think too often we're too afraid of that. There's something inside of all of us that when we start digging into it and we start experiencing it, and then when it's all the pain and everything's gone and we reflect on it and we realize, what did we just do? That brings some deep joy, and then the connections that you build in the process. And then to answer one of the other questions in the chat there, you know, whether or not we're going to continue to focus on backyards. For me, this is where I'm kind of putting my wheelhouse right now. I'm interested in the brackets and moving through there to the best that I can. Otherwise, what's next for me, it would be after this, is the potentially 24-hour challenges, or the 24-hour team. So that's where I'm at.
We have a couple questions about like tent setup, like how do the aid stations and base camp work is out there, and then a general question about, are you able to talk to your crew by your phone or walkie-talkie while you're on the loop? I'd have to look. I think the official rules are you cannot talk to anybody while you're on the loop outside of other racers. That would be considered outside of system. So you can only essentially communicate with your crew and engage with your crew when you are in the aid station. So you can talk to other runners and you can get support from other runners. There's nothing wrong with helping each other, but you cannot take assistance from anybody outside of the race during the race while you're on the loop.
I can say real quick, as far as one of the things that's been most beneficial about WausaUltra and the backyard format has been, for anybody who's done it, I mean, and I know all of the race directors are on here, but they are second to none as far as how they put that event together and how they treat everyone. The first year you show up, I mean, they're helping you carry stuff and getting stuff set up. I mean, it's incredible. And I think one of you guys, Rob, Chad, somebody should just kind of talk about the heart behind that, because I think that for a lot of the people who do backyards, you do other races, and I've done a lot of other races since then, and they are not run in the same manner that I've experienced there, and just kind of the attention to detail. And to go back to the question Scott answered before about why do this? Because I think it gives you an opportunity to see what you can do that you would be intimidated to do if you were to sign up. But no, who's going to sign up for a 100-mile race out the gate? When you go and run 62 miles, you're like, that 100-mile race isn't so crazy anymore. That 50-mile race isn't so crazy anymore when you do 30 some miles. And so I think looking at the setup and everything, I don't know if one of you guys would be willing to chat about that, of how you've gone through that from our team over here, but I think it'd be beneficial from everybody on the other side to share some of those thoughts, because the attention to detail and the thought and having 6 RDs on the team, man, it's been awesome. And for my first ultra, I was hooked the minute those guys treated me that way. So community, awesome.
Yeah, thanks, Leroy. That's very kind words. And I'll chime in a little bit on this. And I think a big part of it is the format. You're coming around every hour. We see you every hour. It's not like a 100-miler where you're out there, you're alone. It's become such a community because you keep seeing people. And as the RDs, we start to root for people. Everyone who comes through, we see people starting to kind of have some bad loops, and we become their cheerleaders as much as their crew does. And if they don't have a crew, we are their cheerleaders for them. We have amazing volunteers that actually step up and do the same thing and help them out. And we've had, crew members jump in and actually start crewing other people's crew, because the whole thing becomes a family. Doesn't matter if you're an RD, it doesn't matter if you're a racer, it doesn't matter if you're a volunteer or a crew, everyone's there to help everyone finish. And when you see these people all the time, it just makes it a vested interest that you have in everyone's success. I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that, Scott.
Yeah, it starts to become more than a race. It really is about community building and sharing moments with one another that can really only be experienced in an event like a backyard. And so it becomes really, really special. And the people that you interact with throughout the course of 24, 40 plus hours, they become more than just athletes or participants in a race. They become part of that family that Rob mentioned. It's what's super special about this type of a race. You see people constantly, hour after hour. You get to know their crew. You get to spend time with their families. That's unique to ultra events. And it's one of the most special things about this. And so I think what I'm hearing everybody say is that is a draw, and all of the unknowns and all of the nutrition and all of the gear and all the things that go into it, super important. But if you haven't done one yet, sign up for one. I don't care if it's Elm Creek. I don't care if it's WausaUltra. Sign up for one. It's super special. And what you're going to get out of it is more than just a race. So this was awesome. I really appreciate everybody today and sharing the experiences that you've had. So appreciate it, Nick. Thank you for letting us be a part of this.
Yeah, no, thank you guys for hopping on. It's really cool that we made the connection. I know Ellen and I met out in Moab when we were out there, and it's cool to kind of see what you guys are doing and to learn from you guys as well. And it's awesome to see. Just I think a lot of the backyard community is about creating these events that they're just different because you have a single location that you're seeing people come through. This is much about like what's happening in that space between the loops as it is with the people that are on the loops. And we're trying to create a community that's accessible to everybody to create a great experience for the people that are pushing themselves to whatever their goal might be, whether it's a fix, I want to go do 6 loops, or I want to test the boundaries of what's possible. And it's just awesome because you get to share that with so many different people in so many different ways.
If I can jump in, so my first time I ran the backyard, I did the Duluth one, and I wasn't sure what, I mean, I you know, it was obviously appealing to me, but we ran a first lap and we were waiting for the second lap to go off, and somebody was coming down the ski hill. It's a ski hill finish at that race, and they weren't going to make their first lap, and everyone in that race was cheering and yelling for this person to try and make it, and they didn't. And it was like that person was a hero in that moment, and they were doing their first lap and everyone was going crazy. I mean, it was like I'd never seen anything like that before in a race. And the person that was coming down was so full of joy, even though the race ended on the first lap. And I was like, wow, this is a pretty cool event. I've never seen a person who didn't even finish one lap get so much sort of celebration and joy on their face in that experience. And I've been kind of hooked on the experience ever since then. You know, I think, you know, we all runs all kind of races on all kinds of distances, but this is just sort of a unique thing. And I really appreciate the people that are making this accessible to everyone. I don't think it's probably easy to run this kind of event for the RDs here. And I'm super grateful that we can run one like here in Elm Creek, you know, a local event that kind of lets you compete, see where you can compete on almost a national level. Like Riley's talking about, he's trying to do something, you know, to get into all the kind of races, and this is a way to get in. And it's pretty cool. Anyway, I really do appreciate you guys making these races happen. I mean, Nick was out on the course at like 2 a.m, like cheering people on. I mean, I'm like, you know, he doesn't have to do stuff like that. Like, you know, he just did it, and it just makes you feel like, you know, that's another, I mean, I don't know, I'm sure I'm getting a little bit of vibe too. It's like these races, you feel very loyal to them after you run them too, because of the people involved in them. Even if I go out there and I whatever distance I go, it's kind of irrelevant. It's like supporting the people that are putting these races on is super important too. And I'm glad Nick's race sold out. It's like, you know, I don't know how many people were last year, and he's keeping it a size he can manage, but he's giving a bunch of people a whole new opportunity to get into ultra racing or express their greatest self in ultra racing through this event. That's a cool thing. Like, you know, I'm sorry, I can't remember her name, but he's saying, you know, some people, this is their first entry into racing. It's like, oh, can I run this? And well, you know, it's a great event to start, and it's a great event to find out what you're really made of too. There's so many different people in that corral, and you know, you don't know what you're going to run into in that event or who you're going to run into.
I don't know on the WausaUltra side if you're seeing the same thing, but we have almost over a quarter of our entries are all never run a true, like no ultra sign up events, like because we used ultra sign up before, and I mean, it most serves as a portal of trail running background. So we have almost a quarter, if not a third, of all our entries are new to trail running, it seems, which seems to be, it's great because I think this is a great mechanism to get people in a comfortable way that they can kind of test their limits and not have to go and run 15 miles off in one direction in the woods and come back. But I know there's many smaller formats, but I think the natural phenomenon that people think about trail running, they jump into ultras right away, even though there are a lot of great shorter races as well.
Yeah, I just wanted to acknowledge the fact too for those, and also give Nick a pat on the back for that experience there at Elm Creek. I mean, that was amazing. Again, going back to the idea of getting hooked into the environment, I couldn't believe the amount of support that was there. I was pretty independent on my crew and what I had brought, but I couldn't believe what was available because I didn't know what to expect. And I'll say this too, and I do remember last year, the time at Elm Creek, that getting set up this year and having a better game plan. If there's anybody else out there, just understand that my tent that I'll be under is open to anyone else that wants to, that needs some extra help or anything like that along the way. I mean, my crew can be your crew, or however we can make it work to help you out. So just keep that in mind.
Same here with me. My tent is your tent if you need it. If you're going solo or if you get in a jam, I feel the same way.
Yeah, I think you see a lot of that at these races. People bouncing between tents and helping out, and as people drop their crews, going over to help somebody else out. But I think there was a question about the setup. I know you see a little bit of everything from ice fishing tents to deer blinds to a sleeping bag. But I think whatever the max size is, but a fully enclosed place with a heater, at least during the WausaUltra time frame, for me was fantastic at night. It would get really cold, and it was just nice to go in there and get a little bit of relief, and a place to sit down or lay down. I think is definitely key. And Phil, I see you also asked about the run walk, and I don't know if your course is a little bit flatter, but if you ran for the first 7 minutes of WausaUltra, or any 7 minutes, I think you'd be tapped pretty quick. I feel like you got to let the course come to you. We have so many hills. Feels like you're mostly going up or down. And I've seen it in longer races, especially fixed distance, but long distance races where people incorporate I'm going to run for 7 minutes and then walk for 3. And I see them leapfrogging me over and over and over, but they're running hills. And then I see them walking it downhill, and then running an uphill and walking it downhill. And eventually they're walking flats. And then eventually they're just walking all the downhills and they can't run anymore. So I like letting the course come to you, Phil. That's just take what the course will give you, regardless of what it looks like. You should be able to walk in this format, walk every single uphill. You can walk some of the downhills, and you can jog the flats, and you can get in 52, 53 minutes, probably, 54. So I say let the course come to you.
I think if anybody's coming from a road running background, I think
yes,
the idea of walking for many people it's like preposterous. But I'll tell you, trail running for many years, it's the dirty little secret that everybody in trail running is walking a lot more than you might think. I mean, the pace is slower, especially in a backyard, even more so, that you're just letting that race come to you, as Travis said. It's like every hill, you should be walking. Like there's no
another little tip. I always walk the last couple few hundred yards in, let my heart rate drop, smash a bunch of food, and at our course, you are pretty much forced to walk the next handful of minutes anyways, but walking in and walking out of the gate and just kind of easing into that. If you do get later in a race and you want to sleep, it would help with that. It just, again, coming in calm and not feeling rushed is very important.
Yeah.
One real quick thing to go off of what Travis said about the tent thing, because that's a great topic. The first year I came up with their normal camping tent. That is a terrible idea on a lot of levels, because I set it all up and I'm sitting there before the race and I'm like, this is going to be really nice. And the minute your legs get tired, the last thing you want to do is crawl into a tent. So like a pop-up 10x10, like Travis said, with walls on it, that's what we did last year, and it was way better. So if you're thinking about bringing like a normal little tent you're going to crawl into, that's a horrendous idea. You don't want to crawl anywhere. You just want to sit in a chair or walk in somewhere, so nothing where you have to bend over. And also, I'll say that the walking in the uphills, I was totally new to that. And I think Jake scolded me on every uphill for the first 6 loops. He's like, Leroy, you should not be running these. But it was all foreign. And so it's a learning curve trying to figure it all out. You feel lazy when you walk the hills, and then you realize only the smart people are walking and the idiots are running them.
I think the most common things we see in tents, it's like those simple 10x10 or 8x8 pop-ups. You can go, I know for our race, and I believe at WausaUltra, there's always extra space that is available if you don't have a tent. So we'll find places either with our own gear or with another racers. There's plenty of people out there like Scott and Riley and Travis and Roy and everybody out there that will offer space. And so don't be afraid to ask. I know last year we had some people that came, it's raining, and they had like a bucket and they're sitting in the rain under a tree. I'm like, we've got places. We'll always make room to get people covered. But if you're bringing your own, like that 8x8, 10x10, a chair, and then like a bucket of your stuff, you can lay it out on a towel and you kind of get to put it out there. And then your crew, if you've got crew, you've got to spread out there too. It's plenty of room. But we've got plenty of room for that. And for those with the Elm Creek, we've got 3 picnic areas to work with. But yeah. Anything else? Any other questions, comments, last bits of wisdom?
I had a couple more comments. I would say Scott said it earlier about not setting a goal. One thing that what I remember seeing a lot over the last 2 years of racing in and then being at the WausaUltra, a lot of people set goals and it is a PR and it's amazing, but they stop that lap. I would guess 85 to 95% of people stop when they hit their goal number, regardless of if they could have done another one or how good they felt. There's a mental thing that happens when you hit it. So I don't know. I think I kind of like Scott's idea. I never had a number in mind either. Go out there and do the best you can. That would be one thing. And then on training, I think on-course training is really key. On-course training at the pace, if you can do it. So go out there for 6 hours, do it back-to-back days, run at the pace you're going to, sit down and rest for 8 minutes between those laps, eat your food, understand how painful that's going to be the first few laps, whatever. It's hard to go that slow sometimes. And I made it the goal to try to be last place for the first bunch of laps. Like everybody's coming in under, like we just try to go as slow as you can until you have to start picking it up. So, and I think part of that was also, I think Leroy said about the watch. I put my watch on a lap of 4.2 miles. And I know my average pace, I want it to be between 13 and 14 minutes, average. And the only screen I see is my average pace for the lap. And I know as long as I'm inside of that, I'm going to be fine. And I think that was also a big key.
Thanks, Travis. Anybody else? Other thoughts?
Nick, when is your event? Forgive me for not knowing that.
We're the same day as you. You guys are going to start, I think, at noon or 10, something. I know in the morning. You start a couple hours before we do. We start at 6 p.m. on the 28th, on Friday. Now, I think Jeanette and Ellen were trading notes on Instagram last year as you guys had a couple laps on us.
I was giving weather reports as the rain was moving through Maple Grove that it was on its way out to you all in the middle of the night.
Well, it found us. That's for sure. It absolutely found us.
Yeah, I was trading Instagram story messages with Wausa, letting them know that the rain was on its way. It was great. You guys were an awesome pick me up for the race directors in the middle of the night that night. So thank you for that.
Hey guys, thank you all for hopping on. So it's great to do this with you guys, and good luck with your events. We're 6 or 7 weeks out, closing fast. Hopefully the snow is going to be out of here. I know we've got a lot of it in Maple Grove right now. I don't know what it's like in Wausau, but I'm hoping for a dry course at least. But we'll see. Should be fun. I'm excited. So thank you guys again. If you guys do have questions, feel free to send them to either of the sets of race directors for your given race. If you want to ask specific questions, always we're available to answer them. And good luck to everybody. So we'll post the recording. I'll get it over to Rob and Scott and Ellen. So the WausaUltra folks have it as well to share if they'd like. We'll go from there. So thank you guys.
Good luck, everyone. Happy
Thanks,
training.
everybody.
Yeah, thank
Nice
you.
to meet
Take care.
you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Good luck.